The use of the desktop as a visual canvas has increased in the last number of years, not only in the form of the desktop documentary, but also for more narrative-based projects. The spatial and temporal specificity of the computer screen provides the perfect lens through which filmmakers can experiment with contemporary concerns. Lisa Akervall has discussed the use of multi-perspectival devices in film as an expression of our current audiovisual landscape, which is based upon the proliferation of mobile screens, which themselves use fractal interfaces combining both human and mechanical gazes. More than ever, such screens are also the sites through which we engage in networked communication. This is also the subject of discussion in Tony Zhao's video essay, A Brief Look at Texting in the Internet and Film. As we can see, this problem is already being dealt with in Hollywood and big-budget international productions. Here Zhao suggests that we have ceased attempting to visualize networks in the internet, a moment of fascination particularly among directors of Asian and American science fiction in the 90s and early 2000s. Instead, contemporary texts attempt to visualize the experience of using such networks, making this a question of subjectivity. Critics of post-cinematic subjectivity, like Beth Coleman, argue that as media become more pervasive, the categories of subject and object become more porous in these online network spaces. It is this shift in power and agency, associated with pervasive mediation, that such desktop narratives investigate. Taking all of this into account, here's Holly Herndon's music video for Chorus. The song itself is constructed from audio samples compiled from 2 weeks of internet browsing. While the Akihito Taniguchi directed video could not be described as a straight desktop film, it takes samples from a host of different media content to create its own composition, much like the song itself. This moves from camera footage to the webcam embedded in the desktop, until the perspective separates itself from the screen and floats around 3D renderings of people's physical desktops, where such interaction with devices occurs. As the mediation accelerates, so too does the distortion of the media itself, with 3D renderings that are only partially constructed. This degradation creates a sense of unease or suspicion in the viewer. This is Herndon's aim, who acknowledges the influence of the then recent NSA surveillance scandal in the work. Therefore, these spaces appear both as comfortableness and sites of vulnerability and suspicion, as the individuals using these devices are subject to imperceptible surveillance. The workspace which house these devices are both neat and messy, filled with consumer items that explode onto the screen. Just like the desktop images which are populated with personal files, these spaces are lived in. The cacophony of consumer items and personal files are equated in a sense, as they construct the identities of those users who are absent from the screen. Considering the emphasis on surveillance, this first appears to be a critique of data mining and the subject-object collision, but it might also be the answer. Beth Coleman argues that the only treatment for mediation is more mediation, through a new kind of embodiment in which we can claim these spaces back. By mediating sites of engagement, Herndon and Taniguchi construct a very human presence from the mimetic traces left behind by digital media. This is presented by creating a literal subject position of a human user moving around their physical desktop.